you've got quite an inspirational story. I like your brand, and obviously we've spoken in a few on Clubhouse, and listened to your podcast with Jen as well. So I know you've got quite a lot to share with our audience, to make us all sort of stand out. So it'd be good to capture all of that in the course of the podcast. So I thought initially we'll probably set the scene by just taking you back a little bit, for you to just give us a little bit more of your background, like from humble beginnings, growing up, maybe school, and how you stumbled onto your particular niche and what you do now. So yeah, if you just take us back, from the early days, and then we'll build it up from there, and within that we can just pick topics and discuss as we go along. Yeah, as I was saying, I think it'll be good just to set the scene a little bit, just get a bit of your background, because most of our listeners tends to resonate with a bit of getting to know the guests, and some stories can be a bit similar to their background, and then that gets them to feel that if Elliot coming from this sort of background, going through certain challenges and successes, can get to a certain stage, maybe there's a bit of hope for us as well. So we just build it like that, and within we just get to talk about various topics and pick it up and build it up from there, in terms of what you're doing and what you can offer as well. So let's just if we take it from there, just take us through Elliot as the person, growing up, humble beginnings, and the journey up to now.
Yeah, cool. So I'll give you the edited version, otherwise we'll be here a very long time.
Yeah.
But basically what happened was, I was born a few years ago now. I know you can't tell from my youthful looks, but I was born into a very very conflicted environment. So my dad was an alcoholic and my mum was a workaholic. And she probably became a workaholic because my dad was an alcoholic. So she had to work really, really hard. So I was already born into this environment where I had my mum that was an incredibly hard worker. My dad kept getting fired and I never knew why, and all this argumentative kind of environment. And I was very different. I didn't quite fit in. I was asthmatic. I had eczema. I didn't know back then, but I was dyslexic. So I found things very hard to read. I still do. I've written 4 books and I still can't read, and my 5th one's coming out soon, but it's just one of those strange things. I listen to audiobooks and I didn't go on with my brother, and I felt very isolated as a child. I felt very different. So of course, when I've got that kind of environment at home, I wasn't a particularly nice kid at school either. I wasn't, I just wasn't a nice kid. And that's something that pattern carried on as I grew up. Then you'd use school more of an outlet to what was going on at home. And so obviously I wasn't very nice to teachers. So teachers out there, I'm very sorry. But I wasn't very nice to teachers, or teachers weren't very nice to me. But equally, I found learning very hard because I couldn't read. And then I was being told I was lazy. And I was like, no, I'm not lazy, I'm trying. And when I would write, they would, make fun of my writing. And, and it's just kind of that vicious cycle, because at the time, again, dyslexia wasn't, while it was common, it wasn't very known. So as you can imagine, I did some pretty silly things, going to loads of fights and knife fights and things like that as a child, as a teenager. We're more into teenage territory now. And and it was quite troublesome. And then gradually what happened was, my mum by this point, my parents were divorced. So my parents got divorced when I was 6. So again, it was an era where being divorced wasn't common. Now it's fairly common. Oh, my parents getting divorced, let's go down the pub. Back then it's like, oh my God, your parents are divorced, and you're such a weirdo. Like, did your parents get divorced because of you? It's like, it's one of those. And with all my illnesses, and I had really bad, eczema up my arms, which meant that when people would go to pools and things like that, I couldn't go in, and I was told I couldn't go in. So all in all, I kind of always felt very disconnected and not a part of. And that's kind of a theme that carried on for years throughout my life. I always haven't belonged, but I do now, Yeah. And then what happened was when I was at school in Kingsbury in London, I did a little bit of a Shakespeare play. Like I think I had 8 lines or something silly like that, really small, as you like it.
Yeah.
That was the only bit I did. A, because I couldn't read. B, because I just wasn't good enough, I guess. And that set me on a path to really start exploring performing arts. I ended up at college doing performing arts in Barnet in London. And in my year was a gentleman who ended up in a boy-girl band. And a year above me was one of the Spice Girls. Unfortunately, I didn't end up in anything as exciting as the Spice Girls or a boy-girl band. But that set me on the path, really, I think, to start becoming self-aware to who I am, my identity, who I wanted to be. But again, you know, within that, I still kind of didn't fit in. So while I'm surrounded by all these performers, I was the guy who was the rocker with the long hair and the big glasses and the big boots. And then even when I used to go to rock clubs, I'd show up to rock clubs wearing musical t-shirts, you know, to make a point. So while I wasn't kind of loud and obnoxious, I always found a way to stand out, you know. So that's kind of, you know, from there I pursued a bit of a path to uni. I did dance and drama out there. And then I quit after 2 years because I felt the course wasn't right for me. Even though I had 1 more year left, everyone's like, no, don't quit, don't do it. It's like, you know what, I need to do this. So then I auditioned to a dance school and I got in and I had no money. And by the way, with my mum being a workaholic, my dad being an alcoholic, we didn't have any money growing up. I very much wore a lot of pass-me-down clothes. You know, here and there I'd get new clothes. It wasn't... But, you know, I'm not someone that had a lot of money. You know, when people were getting £5 for spending money, I was getting 50p. You know, I remember, particularly when we used to go to the shops, you know, everybody seemed to have more money than me to buy whatever they want. And I was like standing over my 50p going, what am I going to do with this? You know, but then again, at the time, you could buy a can of Coke and a Mars bar for 50p. So I would buy a can of Coke and a Mars bar. It just got trickier when we started smoking and things like that. I don't smoke now, obviously, but back then. So yeah, I started, I got into a dance school, and again, you know, to prove a point in many ways. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have any backing. I didn't have anything. So I worked every night and every weekend to raise the money. I just knew I really wanted it, till eventually I got a scholarship from the school. They were like, we've watched you, you're working so hard, we want to make sure you can do it. And then my 3rd year was funded. That was the last year of funding. I just about scraped.
Wow.
Yeah, literally the last year of funded education. Again, showing my age here. Yeah, and then I had a bit of a dance career until I got injured. So that takes me up till I was 30. 30, I got injured, had a disc hernia. And then I had to find my path again. So I did try and go back to dancing. I did a whole taking year out and then, you know, working on myself. But then literally the day back, one last kick and my back went again. I didn't have the tools then I had now. So I kind of knew it was over. Then I pursued different paths. I tried launching a fashion label. I worked as a PR for a modeling agency. I did a whole bunch of things. I tried to get a TV show commissioned. You know, I put up the money for the pilot.
Yeah.
So I did a whole bunch of things like that. And then I landed in a training job. From the training job, I kind of found my path into coaching into strategy. But throughout that, and then I found a real passion for obviously public speaking. Yeah. And not because of my, you know, I guess a little bit because of my performing background, but more because of the impact it can have on people and how quickly you can impact people's lives. Yeah. So then for the last decade, I've been involved in public speaking training. I've been an international trainer. I train myself now internationally, but I was also part of another organization. I've moved away from that now. And now I run Speaker Success full time. But also within that, I've been bankrupt. I've lost everything. You know, way back in 2011, I lost my apartment. That bankrupted me. I have slept on my dad's floor because I was homeless. Homeless doesn't mean sleeping rough for everybody out there. So, you know, because I just believed in my artistry. I've been dumped for a billionaire by a girl I was madly in love with. So there's some interesting things along the journey. I've suffered from depression. That was 3 years ago, really bad depression for months. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey to where I am today. Yeah. So that gives you a little bit of an insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Elliot. There's quite a lot of stuff there, like you said, to unpack. But I just picked up on one key word from all of that you said, and that is this awareness, which you've mentioned about. Because obviously you've gone through a lot of stuff. I can imagine from where you are today, if you knew some of the things you know now back then, you would have probably done things differently. So I think that's quite a key maybe word to sort of unpack, because when you are going through all of that, I guess you are just caught up in the motion of what things are happening and how they are happening, and you started probably to pick up the awareness of certain things over time, and that's what has helped you to build a certain life to where you are today. But I guess the question would be for people who are also caught up in that, with what you know now, what are some of the key things you think sort of helped you to map out your journey, or was there maybe some key people, mentors as well in there that actually helped you in that awareness phase?
Yeah, I mean, I think all along I've had mentors, even if I didn't know they were called mentors at the time. You know, I've been very lucky that people kind of always wanted to take me under their wing and help. You know, even when I was at school, I remember even as disruptive as I was at school, but when I was at the dance school and I was working every night and every day, and I was exhausted, plus training, every single day. When we're not talking like you do like an hour a day, we're doing 6 to 8 hours a day dance training.
Yeah.
And I just remember this woman, her name's Alison. She's incredible. I didn't even realize that, but she was married to my friend's cousin. I didn't know. And she just stopped me one day. She's like, Elliot. Like, hi, Alison. She was like, how are you doing? And she just asked me some questions. And then she just went, I want you to know that there's a guardian angel watching over you. I was like, oh. So like, just know that. Just know there's a guardian angel. And this is out of nowhere. This is out of context. So you're being watched, and there's a guardian angel watching. I was like, oh wow, okay. So that already made me feel very protected. And like I've always had those people in my life. You know, if we look back at our life, you've always had people in your life that have kind of had your back, looked out for you. You know, even through teenagers, when I was really my teenage years, when I was disruptive and that, I'd always get taken in by families and looked after like as one of their own. You know, and then throughout that, I've always had those people in my life that I guess technically were mentors. Even, you know, when I was training a guy called Namron, who was the first black male dancer in the UK, contemporary dancer, he always kept an eye out for me. He was always like, Elliot, come here. How are you? Are you okay? You know, and he's really this really loud, big, larger than life character.
Yeah.
So I think I've always had mentors, right? In that respect, and I would have done a lot differently. I wouldn't change the lessons because it's who I am today, but I would have changed a lot of how I did things if I could rewind. And I think that's everybody, right? The hindsight's a great thing. I think people have always had a presence in my life to guide me, and I've always welcomed that. Yeah. And I think we can either be guided down various paths, right? We all have, even if we end up in crime, which I was very close to ending up with, in knife fights and things like that, you know, there's people that can guide you down that road, and they're mentors. It's all a choice that we want to make, but it's the presence of people that had my back and wanted the best for me, and could see that, you know, this isn't a good path, and my willingness to listen. I mean, the big change happened when I was 16. Basically, my mom was like, look, you're going to be a criminal. Right? You're out late. You're out getting into fights. And she moved us. She moved us from really quick, you know, urban life to a very quiet village for a little bit. And that changed everything. That changed my relationship with my mum. That changed my relationship with people. It meant that because I wasn't always coming in and going, we were in a small village, so I was home a lot more, right? And I was doing other things. So the importance of people as guides in my life has been an essential part. Definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Elliot. Now, you know, when we talk about, you know, being different, and you know, we'll talk about brand as well, about being more Giraffe, but there's a lot of people, like if you look